Is everybody started?
So I've got one game open. Asish's game is up.
Oh, okay. Let me do that. Refresh. Okay, and then click on
Roman's playing. Like Panda's getting deeper into his game.
Yeah, it's started off a center counter, and he's played the system without playing an immediate D4. He played the D3 line, which is really super solid. It allows you to continue development without giving black a lot of targets, and since it's not very well known, it's kind of puts players more on their own resources. So it looks like pretty standard stuff right now. Well, actually, yeah, it's a little unusual that he went back to D8 with his queen. Because there is a line of the Scandinavian or the center counter where after you play D5 and take with the queen and he moves the knight out to C3, he goes back to D8 immediately. Let's see what else we got going. Do you have anybody else going?
I'll double check. I'm going to run through the moves in Panda's game real quick so people can see.
Okay.
And looks like Roman's game is...
Yeah, he's played the Alban counter gambit. Super sharp.
What do you think the question mark means after his rating? Is that maybe they're provisional?
Yes, for Lichess. I think I still have that question mark. I don't know what the minimum number of games you have to play to get an established rating at this time control is, but I'm pretty sure it means it's provisional.
And he's playing, I should have told people already. So in round one, Asish Panda is playing Gopal Menon. That's a 2374. And Gadson is playing Matthew Stevens, who's 2358. Kevin Ho has white against Roman Kozelov, and Ho's rating is 2065. And Venkat Abudaya, hopefully I got close, has white against Proleiko, Julian Proleiko, and he's a 1950. So I don't know about these pairings. I think I liked it better where you met your counterpart in the last round.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense to me. Okay, game.
And I mentioned Brian Ruda. He showed me a video that Julian made for the St. Louis Chess Club. So I think he's active in that club.
Well, I guess I need to be commentating, huh?
Which game do you want to look at? Looks like they're all 4 going now.
Yeah. Well, let's look at Roman's game. And I have it 15 moves deep already, so it's he played the Alban counter gambit, and it's very, very sharp. You know, you sacrifice a pawn that a lot of times you don't get back for a long time. You're just playing for the attack, but looks like his opponent has decided not to castle on opposite sides like they normally do, and he's castled on queenside the same as Roman did, so that kind of slows down the attack a little bit. But I mean, you know, you look at Roman's pieces; all of his pieces after 14 moves are all super active. He's got a pawn on d4 there that's really cramping white, although he has to kind of watch out for knight to e4, which will hit a couple of soft points. His last move was 15 king to b1. Yeah, so he's going to try to slow him down or stop him. Knight to e4 threatens knight takes pawn on f6, and also knight to c5, which would get rid of black's good white squared bishop. So yeah, it's pretty sharp. Playing rook to g4 kind of puts the rook on a vulnerable square. Bishop to h3 might be an idea. So this game is really, really sharp. And a lot of times you can't you can only give a general overview when you just are looking at it for the first time. There because you haven't thought of all the moves the whole way. So.
And black's 2 knights can't hold up the pawn.
The knights. I mean the pawn is it's cramping white center. I mean, white can't really play e3 or e4 now because of those the knight on f5 especially. But the pawn is on the queen is on the same file as that pawn, and so you have to kind of be on the lookout for moving the knight away from d2 and playing e3, and then the pawn would be pinned.
Okay.
Now, king to h1, I'm not sure what's going on there. I think there might be some tactics with. Apparently, there was some tactics there with the king on b1 and the queen on c2. Roman was probably threatening knight to e3, or knight takes g3. Probably knight takes g3, which would then allow bishop to f5, which would pin the queen to the king. So yeah, he was using the rook to g4. That was the threat that he set up. So this is super sharp. White's position, like I say, his pieces that are all well placed. It's just a matter of what can he do. Now this is very sharp. And bad thing is Roman is about 5 minutes behind on the clock. So there's another. Oh, okay. So here's some more. He's working with tactics again. I mean, we need to go to the other games probably, but he's working with tactics. He left the rook on pre, so if bishop takes rook on g4, you would play pawn takes. Then that knight on f3 has to move, and then the knight on d2 is pinned to the queen, and there is apparently maybe a follow-up like knight to h5 or knight to a5. You take the knight on d2, and that relieves the guard of b3, and then knight on a5 could take on b3. So there's a lot there's a lot going on. But I'm going to. I mean, they're moving pretty quick, and there's a lot going on. I want to look at some of the other games though. So
Okay.
let me. Because the other game, I don't want the other games to get away from me. So let's look at Julian's game, and they're 15 moves deep in it. Also, this was a Queen's Gambit, standard Queen's Gambit with Bishop to F4, which has been pretty popular for 20 years or so. And White has played on the king side with H4, which is a little bit unusual. I want you castled on that side. So just, I don't know, a quick overview. The pawns are symmetrical. So knight to C4 looked like a pretty good move. You're threatening the A3 pawn and also knight to B2 to get rid of that good white squared bishop for white. So I think I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. I mean, certainly White has the majority in the center, so it's pretty sharp. This is another sharp game, an interesting game. So let me switch to Isaiah, and they're really deep. They're in an game already. So let me go through the move. So yeah, looks like Isaiah just won a pawn early on, and just playing an in-game a pawn up, which is good. He has the H3 pawn's a little bit weak. Probably play it to H4, but then knight to C5 or knight to F5 will kind of keep it under wraps. So it may be a little bit of time before you can get that rook into the game. But his White's knight is very well placed. You can go to C5. It's a good square. It's a good square on where it is right now. So I'd say White's doing really well in this game. It'd be just a matter of, like I say, he's got to protect, maybe march the king up to C3, protect that C4 pawn, and then maybe find a way to activate that bishop. But we are up a pawn on this board, so let's go to Asish. And he, after 21 moves, let me run through the game. That was the center counter that was played a little unusually. Well, he either won a pawn or black sacrificed a pawn to get an open line against his king, so might have been 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So White doesn't have much of an attack on the black king. His king's pretty solid, and he hasn't really moved forward on that side of the board. He is up a pawn. Black has a lot of control of the center and the open G file, which can be pried open even more by pushing black's H pawn forward after G3 now. So I mean, this is pretty tense. I would say black definitely has compensation for the pawn, at least. So and unfortunately, white squared bishop is stuck over on the queen side, so it can't lend her too much support. He'll have to play something to get the bishop back. He'll have to play something like C3 and bishop to D1 to F3 to get it back over there by the king, take hold of that long diagonal. So this one could be pretty tense.
And this one, Panda's got board 1. He's playing Gopal Menon. So.
Yeah. So yeah, that's their highest rated player. So
last year he got 1 or 2 wins against the board 1s. So.
Right. No, I don't. I mean, this, like I say, I think black probably has a lot of compensation for it. I don't know if you ran it in the computer, what the computer would say, because he's going to continue with pushing the H pawn and exchanging, and then probably putting his bishop on H. Black will put his bishop on H3. That stops H4 right away. Black does have, like I say, he has the center, so he can also start advancing his pawns in the center, although he can't. Once the pawn goes to E5, it's not going to go too much further. So this is kind of interesting. Actually, rook to A4, he can also, it controls the kingside pawn advance for black. It's like I say, it's a little bit passive maybe, but black has to find something to do. Like I say, I think a good defensive try here is to play C3, bishop to D1 to F3. The bonus is after you play bishop to D1, you're hitting that 8 pawn on H5. So this one will be tense. But I think White's doing fine. He's not in any danger of losing, I don't think. And like I said, he was our secret weapon last year, so maybe that will hold true again this year. So I want to go back to our board one, see how that things are. Holy smokes. He has really infiltrated black's position. Let me go back to where I last looked at it. He played king to A1. Okay, knight back. That's the last position I saw. Bishop moves. Bishop F5, C1. Knight to E4. Okay. So, king to B8. King to H2. Queen to H7. Okay. Well, after it's 26 rook to D3, black has obviously got a lot of play. White's going to try to get his queen back in the game with queen to D1 probably and offer a queen exchange. He has left the pawn on E2 to be taken, but I'm sure he'll play queen to D1 now. Yes.
Well,
so he's now he's up a pawn. And he has much more active pieces. White's knight on F1 is pretty poorly placed, although it could possibly come to E4. Although black can shut that down with F5 right now if he wanted to, depending on the merits of that. He could also play rook to E8. Actually, play rook to E8 and threaten rook to E1 to chase that queen away. And actually, rook to E8. You're also threatening rook to E2, pawing up on that knight, and indirectly the bishop on B2. So there's a lot going on. But black is doing very, very well here, I think. Yeah. So he just decided to as a practical matter, you just keep that knight from going to even thinking about going to E4. But the D4 pawn is a little bit weak, but right now we've got it covered pretty well, and the only thing is if we that threatens B5 maybe to loosen up on that pawn, but it also opens up his king side or his king's position. Knight to E4. Well, does that win material? No, he's got rook to B3. Oh no, you can't play rook to B3 because the knight hangs. Oh, this is winning material. Yep. So now the rook is going to fall. He's going to win an exchange. White possibly can get the D4 pawn, although I think black can cover it pretty well. So I think think we're looking pretty good on this board. The moves are coming pretty quick, so let me go back to see how Isaiah is doing. He's still up his pawn, although it's well advanced. But he does.
Like he won.
No, he's up an exchange and a pawn.
Looks like
he's won. Yeah, he's won.
Yeah, I think Black resigns. All right.
All right. So yeah, there's a point. Yeah. You have to kind of watch him. He moves fast. He moves fast and he wins fast. You have to kind of keep an eye on him.
So Isaiah Gadson beat Matthew Stevens for our first.
Yes. Our first point. Okay, so let me find another game. Let's go to Julian's game and see what that's going on there. Looks like he's down in exchange. So no, Julian is white, so he's up in exchange. Had the colors wrong on that. Oh yeah, going over the game. Black just moved his rooks in a position where he could win the exchange or give up. So we are.
I think they made a mistake because it's Julian's supposed to have Black against Venkat in round 1.
Well, that's what I had written down.
I think the Illinois team sent out the wrong challenge.
Will the game stand?
I don't know how that works. I think in an over-the-board tournament, I think it would be too far along to change anything.
Right, to change. Well, even in this, I mean, that would slow everybody down.
Yeah.
I think I did have that happen to me once last year in one of the rounds, as my opponent sent me a challenge with the wrong colors, and I immediately declined it. And I don't know if I contacted you or sent him a message, and they sent one back, the right one. But yeah. So.
Huh.
Yeah, that's I mean, we'll have to kind of put a footnote by this one, I guess.
Yeah. See what they
decide. Now we're up in exchange. Sometimes these positions can be pretty tricky because White has to find a way to break through the knight on. He's basically, I think he wants to get rid of that knight on d5 and the queens, of course. So we'll have to see about the technique. He is up 4 minutes on the clock, so let's go back to Roman's game. So Roman is up 2 pawns. What happened here? He took what? He didn't win the exchange with. Oh, after knight to b3, he didn't take the rook. He took the pawn c4. That's kind of interesting. He elected to be 2 pawns up instead of being the exchange up. So he's 2 pawns. After 39 moves, he's 2 pawns up, and he's starting to. Yeah, the pass pawn. I think that pass pawn's going to seal the deal here. I don't think there's any stopping that G pawn after 40 moves. So this looks good. Yeah, the knight on c5 is just too far away, and G2 and G1 are both covered by the black's pieces, so I don't know how White's going to stop that pawn. And there's no advances into the king's position, black's king's position, so this looks good. So let's go back to Asish's game. So he's up 3 pawns now after 31 moves. He's slightly ahead on the clock. The rook on h4 looks like it's trapped, but at g3 was going to get it out of there sooner or later. But with less than 2 minutes on each side, this is going to be how well can you play blitz, I think. But I think black. There's no doubt that black is in bad shape here. So I just want to stay here and see. Okay, he gave back one of the pawns. So maybe h3 now to get that rook back in the game. Might be, I mean, white's in no danger of losing. It's going to be, 2 pawns up. But it's a matter of time now. Because there's no immediate breaks, there's no immediate threats. You got to get that rook back in the game. Probably have to play something like bishop to g2 to cover the e4 pawn. Oh, he's targeting the h5 pawn. Well, that makes sense if it works tactically. I guess he could play rook to f4 now if he wanted to. Could possibly play bishop to d3.
Like he's down to a minute.
Yeah, he's down to a minute. Rook to d4 is a good square. Does give up the back rank, but you got to be careful now. F5 might be a move because of the pin on the diagonal. You could play rook takes h5 if he plays f5 and trade that way, which would probably be actually wouldn't be bad for white.
Looks like Roman won his game.
Okay. Yeah, that passed pawn was unstoppable. This is looking better for white, though there's still a lot of play. Okay, black's going to try to just eliminate that c3 pawn and then use that pass pawn. No matter, even though white will have a massive pass pawns on the other side of the board. King g2. Okay, got to be careful. Can't go for mass exchanges here. You can play g4 though and just try to get your pawn going. But oh no, I don't think that was right. Although that might not be bad. I mean, you're going to play bishop f7 now. You can give up the bishop or bishop to d1. You give up if you have to give up the bishop. Although, do you have to play f3 here? If you move your king, well, okay, you can go there. You're in, boy, this is tricky, and he's got 4 seconds. Oh, good move. And there's no way. The only way we're going to lose this is on time. We'll never lose it. Uh-oh. No, he can still do. He can do that. You always got to watch putting the bishop and the rook on the same diagonal, but he saw everything. H5. Yeah, he's trying to shepherd us home. Uh-oh. Wow, now it's a draw. I mean, you can try to win this, and you probably should, with as long as you don't lose on time, because this can be very difficult to defend with no time. You have to know the drawing positions cold. You can't try to think them through. You just have to know them cold. E5, King E5. There you go. Looks like they both know how to play this. Yep. Yeah, that draw offer. Okay, that's a draw. He tried. So, I mean, a draw against their board one, that's got to be a success. And so, did you say Julian won his game? Or are they still playing?
Looks like they just finished, and Julian won. Yeah. All right.
So that will just... Okay, I'm going to mark that down as a win for him, even though it's really a 1-0 instead of an 0-1. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. But they are the home team, so I don't know what the rules are. It's their responsibility to send out the correct challenge.
Yeah, and I'm sure in an over-the-board game, once you get that deep, it's too late to make any kind of claim.
Right. Okay, so we just get out of these tabs and then search for or just go back to their...
You should be able to click on their name and then go back to their homepage.
Go back to their homepage, okay. Do that on every game. That one.
Run through the moves on Julian's game real quick so people can see the whole game.
Yeah.
And the players have 10 minutes if they want it. So.
Yeah.
Breath. I think some players don't like it.
I always do. I always did. I wanted to decompress even for 5 minutes if I could. It's a lot of stress.
I need some white out for my notebook here.
Well, Ho is still supposed to have white, though. I've got it up on my phone here. Yeah, I have Ho against Kozelov. I didn't... Let me get out of this then and one rapid games. First round, he played...
You played Noob, right?
Yeah, Noob 696.
Cool.
And that is...
Well, that must have messed up one of the other games.
So somebody sent out the wrong challenge, or... So...
And Roman won.
Roman played Venkat. And he was supposed to play him in round... I suppose it doesn't really matter, except the colors were still wrong on that one. Venkat Kozelov.
Roman was supposed to have white against Venkat, and I've got him down black.
Well, yeah, they sent out the wrong, or they messed up somehow, or...
I don't think they would have updated.
So...
Double check.
Gadson Stevens was right. And...
Oh, here we go. Okay.
So we got
Got 1e4, I guess.
okay. Kozelov is playing. Kozelov is playing Ho this round. He was supposed to play Venkat, but he's playing Ho. And what's the other one? Oh, Asish. Let me refresh this. He started and they're already at move 8. He's black against Matthew Stevens. Okay, let's look at Isaiah's game against their number 1. So this was a Sicilian Rosalimo, and pretty standard stuff.
On Roman's game?
No, I'm looking at Isaiah's game.
Okay.
White, a lot of times, I mean, these C3 lines, you can, C3, an early 5 C3, you can play it different ways depending on what black plays. A lot of times black plays E6 and D5, and let's just white play D4, and you exchange in the center, and white pushes D5. But Isaiah decided to challenge immediately with E5, which allows white to sack a pawn temporarily, but get all kinds of open lines. So right now, after 11 moves, black is a little bit short of development. It's going to take a little bit of time to get his queen side. He's always going to have a weak pawn on D7 now that white's got an E5 pawn. Can you excuse me just a second? Sorry, the dog was scratching to get in.
Oh, that's fine.
So yeah, this is this. White's definitely got to play for the pawn. White has a lot of real easy ideas here. After 11 moves, he's got knight to D2, to E4 to hit on D6. He's got bishop to D6 to keep black from castling, and if black plays knight to E7, then the queen has to stay on that knight, or he can never castle. These positions are a lot easier to play with white than they are black. That hole on D6 could be pretty strong, pretty hard to fill. Now he does have a tempo now because he had to move that bishop out, away. So assuming, see knight there, that's an idea, because at bishop D6 you got knight to F5, but that may not be enough. Because on top of that, on top of just preventing him from castling, yeah, he can just occupy D6 with a major piece, with the knight or the bishop, and just freeze black's play. Right now he's actually threatening knight to F3 to win the pawn back on D4. So if black should try to play a move like B5 to hit the bishop, so he can play bishop to B7, then white has an immediate bishop to D5 to take that diagonal away. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to get that queen side developed. And like I say, right now you're threatening to white's threatening to gain the pawn back, although that might not be the best plan. The best plan may be to try to play something like rook to. You can't play rook to E1 because he has black has knight to a G4 in return. right now. So, and then F2 would be hanging as well as H2. So he has to maybe preface it with something, but knight to F3 and simply taking the pawn back on D4 would be enough to give white an advantage, I think, if there's nothing else. So this one, I predict Black's going to have to burn some time because the moves are, you can't just make natural moves. You have to make calculated moves. Like in a lot of openings early on, you can just make natural moves, and these your position is loose enough that you have to really check everything and double check everything. So let's go. Let me see what else is going on. Is Julian started?
It's like Roman. Was he had his game? Does he have new this round?
Yes. Let me refresh it because I don't have anything up for that. Let's see here. Roman won already. Holy smoke! And
like we won on Julian's board also. Our top two already won.
Wow. So yeah, Black just first he hung a pawn, and rather than give up the pawn, he gave up a weakness on the king side, and then to try to defend the weaknesses on the king side with queen to F6, he lost a piece. So that was a quick win. And so he'll get a little extra rest before the third round. So who did you say won?
Julian won this game. Julian had white against in the new pairings. Julian has. Oh, I guess he had white against.
I can't even see his game.
I think he's got Venkat this round now.
Oh, he beat
Mastillo.
Yeah, I was thinking that was the game from the first round because that thing went so quick. I thought that game had already been played. Man, they were blitzing out the moves. So let's go back to, let me see what Isaiah's doing. Okay, so I think the last I talked about, he played knight to H6, knight to D2. Oh, interesting. D3 just to get the bishop off that diagonal, I guess. So white has won back his pawn. Black is still fairly cramped. He tried to break down the center, the E5 pawn with F6. But looks like he's getting mated or he's losing tons of material. So that F6 was not very well timed. I can go back to that.
I think Panda's the only one we've got going still.
Okay, I'll move back to him. Refresh. So let me go back to where I was. This was still early on. Okay. This was kind of
keep an eye on it. Make sure they don't play the same player twice. They're out of order.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good idea. I'll keep talking. This started off as kind of a strange Sicilian. It's kind of like a Kopek system. Danny Kopek developed a system with knight to F3 and bishop to D3, and then you play C3 and drop the bishop back, and then expand in the center. Kind of transposed into his system. Black had to give up the bishop, dark squared bishop, which was probably not optimal fairly early on. And he got short of development, so he decided to give up his queen. So after 20 moves, looks like a queen and pawn against a rook and knight, which is not optimal. This is not looking very good. And white sacked a pawn with h5 on move 22 to deflect the black rook off the d file so he could grab it. So, which may or may not mean anything, because rook to e5 is a good counterattacking move, although queen to f3, what do you have, rook to f5 again, maybe? You have to kind of watch out that the bishop's on pre and the rook may be coming to d6. The queen is on that long diagonal, which means the knight can't wander off. So, but rook to f5, it'd make white decide what he wants to do. If he wants to, oh, rook to f8 is actually has its points, because now that queen has to get off that diagonal, which takes the pressure off the knight and allows the bishop to drop back to a more natural square on. Well, no, it doesn't, because if he goes bishop to c8, then rook to d6 would win material. So bishop to e8 was forced. Rook to d6 makes sense. Now you're threatening rook takes knight, rook takes c6, and the rook's hanging. So the rook on e5 has to move, but it also needs to stay in touch with that e6 pawn. So white would have gained his pawn back, maybe with a little bit of extra play, at very least. But he's not going to give it up that easy. Rook's pretty solid there. How can white improve his position? Yeah, bishop to h6 is natural. At least makes him think about it. Rook to f7. Rook to f7. Is there any follow-up for white? I'm not. I don't see any way for the rook to join the attack. d8's covered. For the time being. For the time being, this is solid enough. Yeah, black needs to find rook to e2 is a possible move. After f3. Rook to e2 is possible, although you probably after rook to f2, rook to e2, king to f1 would probably gladly give up that b2 pawn so he could play rook takes on e6. So we'll see. We'll see if that's true. The idea is king to f1, rook takes on b2, rook takes on e6. You're hitting that bishop, so he'd have to go bishop d7. Now is there any follow-up after bishop to d7? Okay.
Big time advantage. That was my job last year. Keep an eye on the time.
Oh, okay. You're the color man. You keep track of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely in our favor because this is not by no means a simple position for White to play, and he's down to about a half a minute. Black's 3 minutes up on the clock, although he has the worst position, so that makes it not so easy for him to play. White has to Black is threatening, or White is threatening king to f1 now, and the rook is trapped because if it goes back to e5, then rook takes c6, wins material. So this is interesting. Rook takes c6, rook at d takes on d2. You win the piece back. You're threatening the rook, and you're also threatening maybe to take on g2, although right away you just give up 2 rooks for the queen, and you'd still be down in exchange, but those rooks are... Okay, so, okay. Okay, 17 seconds. Bishop to e8. That looks like it's holding everything for the time being, except, yeah, it is. Queen to d3, rook to e5. Well, rook to e5 is still good here, and you're threatening... Rook to e5 threatens rook to d5. Well, no, it doesn't threaten rook to d5. Okay, this is not that easy because e6 is hanging with check. So rook to e5 was forced. Bishop to f4. You can't play. Well, you can play rook to d5. Or you can play rook to f5, queen takes, rook, no, rook to f5 is not good either. Yeah, rook to d5 is forced. Bishop f7, now if queen to c8 checks, knight to d8. Oh, he just took the knight. I missed that he took the knight. Okay. Yeah, this is too bad. This is too bad. White's playing this real well. Yeah. So now it's a matter of converting a queen and a couple pawns against a rook, which with the increment and the easy potential of developing many outside pass pawns on the queen side is probably going to happen. But we can just watch. White is probably at some point going to play bishop to e5 and go after the black king. Like right now. I would probably play it right now. Although that's, yeah, I mean 6 of one, half dozen of the other. He's kind of paralyzing White's pieces first. Yeah, I would play bishop to e5. The only check, you just run to f4. So okay, this is, yeah, so there went that other pawn. Yeah. Yeah, the rook dropped back to help, but I don't. The rook is in a shaky position, and although rook f7 probably now. He saw it coming. Can't exchange on f3, and he's gonna. Okay, he resigned. So.
Last time I looked at Romans, it looks like they started moving. I just had one move for.
Okay, yeah, I got it now. They got it up to 10 moves. I have been black against Stevens. Okay, so that's what you were saying. They switched, right?
Yeah,
and who is Kozelov playing?
I guess Kozelov and Proleiko. Brian's helping us keep track. I think Kozelov and Proleiko switched their third and fourth round with the way they sent out the pairings. Illinois.
Okay, let me get all 4 games up, and then let's see. Proleiko and games. So this is Menon against Proleiko, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that looks like an interesting game. I'm going to pull the other games up real quick. Gadson. Okay.
Proleiko's got a big.
Yeah, I saw that. And last one, Asish. Well, one thing about Panda, he doesn't mess around. The moves just fly. They're already down to a queenless middle game, I guess is what you'd call it. So let's start with Roman's game.
Okay.
So opponent played 1b4, which is the orangutan. I think it was it Tartakower that?
Oh, is that the one? Is that the one that Nakamura plays when he's just having fun on YouTube?
A lot of times, I think Naka used to play b3 a lot.
Oh, b3 maybe.
This is b4. I think the story was that Tartakower had played this in an international tournament, and it was pretty rare. Somebody asked him what gave him the idea to play that, and he said he'd gone to the Bronx Zoo or some zoo and consulted with an orangutan, and the orangutan told him to play b4.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, but to get back to the game, Roman's playing this in classical style. You just point your pieces toward that king, and white is, after 12 h3 is given, he had to play something because of the pressure on the long diagonal, but now he has a target. Roman hasn't castled yet. He will probably it'll be perfectly safe to castle queenside, but he decided to castle kingside. But black definitely has all the play here. There's nothing going to happen on the queen side. The pawns are too locked up. There are no pawn breaks for either side on the queen side, so it's going to be a matter of pawn breaks on the king side. That's the only way either side's going to infiltrate. So there's a lot of plans here. Perhaps But white's knight on c5 it kind of clogs things up, and ideally you probably want I think you probably want to shift your black wants to trade the bishop, his dark squared bishop and his queen want to trade places, get the queen out in front first. But white is trying to preempt all that, playing f4, and I think you pretty much have to take here. So that gives white an open f file and an immediate tactical threat, since the bishop on f5 is hanging. Bishop takes d5. But in long term, the e3 pawn is going to be really, really weak. And when you look at all the pieces, the white has by far the worst minor piece on the board. And that's that bishop on b2. That in order for that bishop to do anything, it's going to have to try to play e4, and that's going to be very, very difficult to do. I expect something like rook at a to e8 maybe here, to prevent white from even thinking about playing e4 and targeting that e3 pawn. One simple plan would be rook at a to e8, rook to e7 or e6, and the other rook to the e file. It's nice that white is it's gonna be harder for white to challenge, put his major pieces, the rooks and the queen, on the e file, because black always has bishop to g3 to chase one of them off of the e1 square. So really, white is only going to have one square to put a major piece, and that's going to be e2. So this looks very, very good for Roman. Certainly black has all the play. White is just going to have to try to defend. And it's a long way from being over, but black has a really solid advantage here, I'd say. So let's go to a different game. Let's go to their number one against Julian. And wow, this is 30 moves already. He's still got a 7-minute time advantage from what I'm looking at now. Okay, start out a Caro-Kann kind of a closed system. White really pressed everything forward on the king side, all those pawns, and then castled that way, which is pretty unusual. I don't know that I've seen that plan before.
You think Manon, their board one, got in trouble? It's like Julian's ahead on material and he's way low on time, like he made a mistake and he's trying to figure it out.
I'm still going through the moves. I haven't got.
Okay.
There's still even material. I've up to move 20, but you can put her in the cage if you want. Let her eat. What do you do? Oh, white sacked a piece. Was that necessary? Maybe. Yeah, e5 looks like a really strong move. Well, yeah, he sacked a piece temporarily. One, two, three. Yeah, white's only got a pawn for the piece now. He's got that major protected pass pawn on g6, but it's not going to do anything without a lot of help. So, and black's doing really well, just chasing all the pieces. Oh, now, okay, I'm looking at, he gave up an exchange, so now he's down a whole rook. Well, I don't know, a whole rook. A rook for a pawn. This is and white's only got two pieces doing any attacking at all, the queen and the bishop.
Wow.
Even a defensive move like rook to d7 or queen to b6 or queen to b7, I mean. Yeah, rook to d7. Rook to d7 is a multi-purpose move. It also keeps that g6 pawn at home. It can't go anywhere. This is I can't offer anything for White here other than just try to make moves, which is what he's doing. He's under 2 minutes. But Black just has. He just has to maneuver his pieces on their best squares. C2 is a target. To get the bishop there. Knight to C3. I was looking at E4 as a potential target. Okay. See, Knight to C3 has the threat of Knight to D1, which is going to get rid of one of those bishops. So that's hard to meet. You might have to play something like bishop to. No, he can't play bishop to. He can't move his dark square bishop because now the rook to D2 is going to be strong. So, Ellie, you need to stop barking. Okay, so he's going after his weakness. Okay, there is F6, which F6 and E5. You don't want to lose both those. But gosh, a move like bishop D3. Well, he's got a minor threat of rook to C1 here, maybe. But I don't know if it does a whole lot. Bishop D3 is an idea. Bishop to E2, very, very sharp. Yeah. Yeah. See, now you've got you introduced the threat of you cut the rook and the bishop support on E3, and you got the threat of rook to D3 now. So the only thing is, after queen to F6, you have to make sure he can't sneak away with some kind of dumb perpetual. Because White doesn't care about material from here on out. It's just he's got to try to find a way to get at that king and try to get a perpetual or repetition or something. He's also down to 14 seconds. Okay, queen takes E5 or knight check. Okay, yeah, everything's covered. Well calculated. Everything's covered. The rooks will eventually come in. F3 might be a sneaky move. But he's only playing for traps now. Keep checking him. Now, rook D6 wins the queen. Take it. King takes A6. Check him a couple times. Hide on C7. It's done. Yeah, White has all those passed pawns, but none of them can move.
Huh.
Queen D6. Oh, Queen D6 was mate. Instead of rook takes F5, but that's good enough.
Oh.
That was impressive. He played that game really well. So that's a win, our first win. Wow, okay, I forgot about the other games. Where are we at here? Let's go to Isaiah's game. And I'm on move. It's up to move 34. Let me scroll back just a little bit. I haven't looked at anything past the opening here. Yeah, it's like Isaiah just he's kind of maneuvering pieces, made a little pawn break there, and his opponent hung a pawn. So after 25 moves, he's up a pawn with a pass pawn and a 3-1 majority on the queen side. Has the control of the dark squares. He's going to try to set up a blockade, but he wasn't in time, and White got in d6 at c5. So I'm looking at 39 c6. That looks like that might be Jin there. e2, rook to e1. Got no follow-up. White's threatening c7. That looks. This looks like another win. Check. He can just go back. There's nothing there. Queen is pinned, so the queen can't enter the attack. And c7 still a big threat. I suppose that he could try queen to. Oh, if he's trying. Yeah, he was trying c7, queen to e7, threatening a rook on e1, but rook to e1 check. But he circumvented that pretty easily. So now c7 is a big threat again, and you're going to have to give up material. c7 or even b5, b6. So this, with plenty of time, it looks like a. Yep, it was a win.
All right, Isaiah.
And let's see here. Anish. Okay. This is, we've been playing this queenless endgame or middle game for a while. Black has the two bishops, so I think White is a draw.
You're on Panda?
Yeah, Panda.
Okay.
Pawns aren't symmetrical, but Black has a weak pawn on e5. Black has the two bishops, so he's going to play forever. He doesn't. He's just going to probe and probe and probe. And according to my notes, White has offered a draw, and Black has declined it. But there's no real way for the king, Black's king, to infiltrate. Probably would just want to leave those queenside pawns where they are for White. You don't want to create any holes with the Black king, like, you don't want to play anything like b4 and let the Black king have access to c4. I don't see any. You're not going to be able to exchange pawns. Typically, you want to exchange pawns when you're slightly worse. You're not going to be able to do that, so it's best just to leave the pawns where they are. Let him advance. Best he can do is gain some space over there, but I don't really think there's going to be any pawn break. He might be able to play. He might be able to play for b5, b4, put the bishop on d7, play a4, and make White decide whether he's going to exchange on a4 or leave a weak pawn on b3. If he exchanges on a4, he gives Black the square of c4. And if he doesn't exchange. Then he has b3 to worry about. Now he went ahead and blocked it with a4, which may be good enough. Black, black has weak pawns, and that's the white's saving grace, I think, in this position. Is black's always got to keep an eye on e5. He's always got to keep an eye on h6, and so whatever he does, if he tries to run the king over to the queen side and maybe throw the bishop over there, the dark-squared bishop, like to b4 or c5 or something like that, he has to be wary of losing his e5 pawn or his h6 pawn. Now, he's played bishop to e6 on move 35, so obviously he's intending to move the king. King move and target b3. Now, if king to c5, knight to e4 check may be enough, because it doesn't let the king get any closer. If king to c6, okay, this is interesting, because now if king to c6, you're going to have to go back king to c2 anyway, and black now has bishop. Well, he doesn't have bishop to d5. He wants to play bishop to d5 to target f3, but white has knight to f5, which attacks the bishop and the h6 pawn. And also, on top of all that, after king to c6, bishop takes e5 is probably possible in some lines. So it's good that he's up a minute. You don't want to be down a minute when you have to try to hold these positions. But king to d3 looks, like I say, black has just enough weaknesses that okay, he's going to try to sneak that bishop on the other diagonal and maybe attack from behind with bishop to c2. Although white can block knight to e4 if he has to. So I think the trap here is knight to f5, bishop to g6, which would wreck white's pawns, because there's no way to add any more support to that knight on f5. So he just maybe needs just to find a move to pass here, because I really don't think that the bishop check means a whole lot. Although it's possible bishop check, king to d2, you could play e4, but I don't know that black wants to have to exchange the light squared pieces on there. Okay. Yeah, this may be good enough, although now maybe bishop to c5 to d4 is an idea, because now that the knight's pinned, you've kind of taken some of the pressure off of black's weak pawns. But even if the knight gets to, the bishop gets to d4, it's not clear that what it's going to do there. I mean, it cuts down white's space, but you definitely don't want to play bishop to e3. I don't think. Maybe you can, but I think that would be losing, because I think you could take on, if bishop d3, bishop takes, bishop takes, knight, pawn takes, king to c5. Might get you in the world of hurt. You might end up being zugzwanged because you have more weaknesses. So yeah, and it's not clear. I mean, if bishop d4, white can actually also maybe play b4, although that weakens the a4 pawn considerably. But it does threaten to exchange all the queenside pawns. So yeah, this is something that, I mean, b4 is an idea here. b4 takes, bishop takes, and if bishop to e8 attacking the pawn, you play a5, and he would probably play b5. But as a practical matter, you don't have to do that. There's probably no reason to do that. A lot of times you need to be pragmatic about your pawn pushes. So yeah, basically, black's going to make non-committal moves and gain a couple of seconds at each time. And I don't think that going to b4 means a whole lot, because the b6 is going to be weak. So this kind of starting to look like a fortress. I don't really see how black intends to break through. Okay, bishop c1 repeats. So black actually, he runs the risk of trying too hard and losing on time. Because white really doesn't have to do anything. White can just continue to shuffle his bishop. Now he can, if he's thinking about playing bishop to h2 and then playing it on f4, that's not any good. Okay, this is a good move. Now we're going after the pawns from behind. Bishop to f8 is a threat. And okay, like I said, white offered another draw and black declined. Oh, now black offered to draw. It's down to 17 seconds. And probably white should take the draw. I don't think exchanging bishops on c5 is going to be good, because you got to play another move, and you can't play king to e3, because then c4 and black would win, and you can't play king to c3 because then bishop takes knight and black would win. So he's just gonna probe him a little bit more and see how he manages his time, I think. But white has it no worse than a draw here.
You want to check Roman's game?
Oh, are they still playing? Yeah,
yeah. Roman's got a big time advantage. That's my analysis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's got a 3-minute time advantage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so he gave up a pawn or lost a pawn. I have to go back. It's not an inconsequential pawn, because white has the pawn break. Well, he had the pawn break e4 maybe in some lines, although bishop c7 always chased that rook away, so maybe he didn't really ever have it. So yeah, I don't see any winning chances for black, and as long as he keeps the pawn breaks from happening, there's no winning chances for white either. It's just a matter of whether white can blitz out enough moves to not to lose on time. And black has to, if he's trying to win on time, he also has to be cognizant of not repeating the position. But okay, got that bishop. White got that bishop activated. But I think but with each move, white's actually losing time. Okay, rook d4 wins the pawn back. No, it doesn't. Other pawn's hanging. Okay, scratch that. Yeah, he has to play that. Ooh, a trap. Bishop c7, does that work? Bishop c7 works. Because he can't, if he takes, yes, if he takes the rook, we take the check and then win his bishop.
Oh,
so
wow.
the rook has to, oh, he fell for it. Or maybe it's good, I don't know. But, I mean, is that pass pawn he's got to take? The king, is the king going to be fine? Oh, he doesn't have to take. Oh, this is going to be a win, I think. Yeah, you just got to pick up all these black pawns. They're all weak. They're all in dark squares.
Wow.
This is a win. Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's the master's touch there. You're down a pawn, but he can't do anything, and you just keep probing and asking questions, and you reap the dividend. Okay, so was Isaiah
Like,
or who is? They took the draw.
The Panda's game.
Panda drew. So I have 3.5 again, right? Kozelov won, Proleiko won, Gadson won, and Panda drew. Is that what you have?
Looks like 9-3. Good guys.
All right, so that wraps up the match. Excellent. This was a strong team we were playing.
Yeah, they were ahead of us on rating.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, didn't they made the playoffs last year, right? We played them in the last round, and they beat us, and they went in the playoffs, and we didn't. Was that Illinois?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Roman is playing the white side against the Philidor defense. So this should be a really good game. I'm going to really pay attention to this game or go over it afterwards because these classic Philidor defenses are exceedingly difficult to play from both sides, play them correctly. Because black is just so solid, and white usually gains a space advantage, but if he doesn't do something with it, then all of a sudden his e4 pawn can become weak, and so Roman's thinking a little bit. He's down 1.5 minutes on the clock after 6 moves, but still in theory. So we'll let them play a little bit. Oh, he took all the tension out of the position. He played D takes E5. So he must know I don't know if he knows we're well ahead, but he's not playing for any theoretical advantage. He's playing just a solid and trade off pieces and probably take a draw. So that's to our liking. So, okay, Julian, they've got 16 moves going here. So, like I said, I'm looking at Julian's game, and he played A6 on the first move. His opponent did. So this is what Miles beat Karpov with famously, some 30 years ago or more. Basically, you're just trying to not play any theory. Basically, I mean there are theoretical positions in it, but basically you're just trying to get a solid. The way white played it, you get a solid position in it. Already, after 10 moves, black offered a draw and white declined it. So he's playing. He's got his space advantage, his slight development. He's got black's king stuck in the center for now. Black offered another draw. Which there's no reason for white to take it. I mean, he has kind of after 16 moves. He has kind of a weak pawn on a3. But black's king is stuck in the center, so it's problematic that he could even take that pawn and survive. So, yeah, I mean, from a sporting point of view, the match score, regardless of the match score, white's got a really good game here. So you can't fault him for wanting to continue to play.
So far, Roman's got 3 points for us. Julian's got 3 points. Zaya's got 2, and Asish has 1.
So our top 2 are
going for perfect scores today, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Roman's game is still really solid. I mean, it's a typical Philidor position. Like I said, White decided to exchange on e5, which releases any possibility of black playing e takes d4 and playing rook d8 and pressuring the e4 pawn. So it's just super solid. It's not particularly what you play to try to get an advantage, but it's solid, and so they're not doing much in that game. So Julian's opponent hasn't moved. Okay, looks like Isaiah's got the most interesting game. These Benonis are can be really, really wild. So just a classic moves by both pieces, or by both players. White's setup with h3 and f3 is a little bit strange, but I mean the pawn will probably go to f4 fairly quickly anyway. So it does weaken the dark squares a lot, though. So, yeah, he had to give up his dark squared bishop. Well, black's just once White gets that dark squared bishop, or gives up the dark squared bishop, he doesn't have any chances of advantage at all in these type of positions. You just got an absolute lock on e5. You've got an extra piece on that square. You're going to probably play rook to b8, trying to get b5. Now rook to b8, a5 is a move, but then you can exchange that knight on c4 and play b5 anyway if you want to. And yeah, that black is doing really, really well here. And also, you can just leave that knight on c4 and bring your knight back to g6 and target the f4 square. Plus, your queen can't do much on the king side because that knight on c4 is targeting the d6 pawn. But if you care to exchange it, or if White has to move it, the queen has an open road toward the king side, and black's king side, without the g6 pawn, it may look a little bit open, but without a dark squared bishop, there's not really anything going on over there. White was going to have to try to maneuver his both knights over to maybe e3 and g3 and try to work on the f5 square, which is a weakness in black's position because of the g6 pawn is gone. But that's so time consuming. Isaiah is down over 4 minutes on the clock, which is the only thing, but his position is super solid. There's not.
You're on Isaiah's game or Roman?
I'm on Isaiah's game. I'm sorry. After 15 f4, and Isaiah exchanged a bunch of pieces on f4 and just left White with all the dark squared weaknesses. So I would be inclined in this position maybe to play knight takes c4. Yeah, that's what he did. And just remove any pressure on that d6 pawn. Now you've got bishop to d4, you've got bishop to e5. Bishop to e5 in conjunction with queen to g3 is really strong. Right now, black is threatening bishop takes h3 because of the pin. So it looks like to me, rook to f3 is probably forced. Well, he played queen to f1. He's gonna counterplay on that. I don't think that works. I don't think that works. I think bishop takes h3 is bishop takes h3, rook takes f7, bishop d4 check, king moves to h1. You trade twice on g2, and then you pick up the rook on it that is captured on f7. So bishop takes h3 is just going to win another pawn. That's what, this playing f4 and letting black exchange like that. That's why black played g5 in the first place, was because if white ever plays f4, yeah, there he did it. He did it. See, to go over the thread again, now if white plays rook takes f7, it's guarded by the queen. But so you throw in bishop to d4 check. Now, if the king goes to h1, then you play queen takes g2 check. White plays queen takes g2. You take again on g2 with your bishop with check. And when the queen is gone, then the rook on f1 has no defender. So you just take it. Rook on f7 has no defender, so you just take it. So you win. You're winning multiple pawns plus the exchange. So right now he's up a pawn. Plus there's also just the threat of bishop to d4 check is very strong. The threat of bishop to e5 and queen to g3 is very strong. This looks like it's crush. Yeah, white is hurting for certain. What, are you going to play something like knight to e2 maybe? If knight to e2, white can beat. No, yeah, he could throw bishop to e5 in anyway with the same thing. No, there's no check though, so maybe it makes a difference. So not mad. If white's going to play on, he's got to play knight to e2 here. Otherwise, he's just going to be down. Going to be down a pawn with a horrible position. So we'll give him a minute. I'm going to look at some other games, see what's going on. Okay, well, the position, I'm looking at Roman's game now. The pawn position has changed remarkably. So let's see how this happened. Oh, okay. White maybe played a little in Roman's game after 20 moves. Black got c5 in, which is gaining space on the queen side, and threatens to really lock that bishop out with c4 and then play bishop to c5. So white reacted to bishop to d5. Now that changed after all the exchanges on d5. That changed the pawn formation remarkably. Now black has a mobile center. The bishop is better than the knight in this position by far. White does have a passed pawn on d5, but black may be able to play c4 to isolate that pawn. This is okay. Okay, so now we're up to 27 e4. I'm looking at, and this looks worse and worse for white. Like that e4 in, the queen has to go somewhere. e2 looks like the only square that doesn't hang material right away. And then I don't know, is he going to round up that d5 pawn? He's going to pile on it. He could play, yeah, he's going to pile on it with queen d5, centralize. First moves you should look at are centralizing moves. A lot of positions. So now he's threatening the pawn on d5, and if white guards it with queen to d2, then he has to watch out for. Okay, that's a tactic. Now, if black plays f4, because white has queen to a7 check, but is that enough? I don't know if that's enough. If black wants to, he could play rook to d7 here. So you don't want to take the pawn on d5 because then the check might mean something. Although I'm not even sure about that. I don't know that this is very good for white. I'm not convinced f4 is not a really good move. f4, queen to a7 check, king moves, knight to f1. Then you could temporize with rook to d6 if you wanted to. And white's pieces are all bottled up. And black just continues to roll his pawns on the king side toward white's king. Yeah, I'm not very optimistic here for our chances. We'll have to see. We'll maybe come back to it. I don't know how quickly he's going to move. Let me check another move. Okay, looks like Panda won.
Oh, wow.
He moves so fast.
Yeah.
He just plays good moves fast. Let me roll through it here real quick. Okay. Well, that's the game that he won. The white fell for the tactic bishop take h2 check, which he just gave up. He lost a pawn with no compensation. So then it was fairly. White tried some stuff on the king side, but by opening up lines on the king side, he just left all of his weaknesses intact. And although white eventually got his pawn back, so how did he win this? Oh, he just blundered. White just blundered. White had actually gotten back in the game, but he just blundered, lost a rook. Okay, what's Julian up to with his Benoni attack? Or no, Julian is the his opponent played the Miles defense. Okay, Julian after 25 moves is up 4 minutes on the clock. Black decided to castle opposite wing. Ooh, Julian. He is going for it here. He's going for the attack. Black's defending really well, though. He's down 4 minutes on the clock, but he's defending real well. Because white looks to have a lot of threats over there, but unfortunately, I don't think that he can play rook to c4 here. Yeah, he played queen to c4. Uh-oh, that doesn't work. Queen to c4, rook takes d4. Or no, that doesn't work either. Wow, this is good. I thought rook takes d4, queen takes d4, knight to e2 check, but white is first. Rook takes d4, white plays knight to a6 check and wins his queen, which is the threat right now. Knight to a6 check. That was a strong move. I should think twice before I say anything. But knight to c4 was a very strong move, because he also has to meet the threat of knight to a6 check. But he also, if he moves his queen away, he has to meet the threat of the pressure on c7. So how's he going to do both? Move his king? You almost have to move his king to c8. So that when the knight moves, it's not check. But if he wanted to, king to c8, he could probably play queen to a6 again, just to repeat the position if he wanted to. So this is interesting. I think king to c8 is the only move here. 27, king to c8. It's only move to, because you got to do something about that check. If you take the knight with either piece, the knight replaces it, and you still got the same threats. Actually, I mean, not the same. If you take with the pawn, you play knight takes, and then you got rook takes on b7 next. So, but if knight takes, you got the same threats. So I think king to c8 is forced. I'll just stay here for a second because he's getting low enough on time. He's going to have to move here pretty quick. His opponent, Julian's got a 6-minute advantage. Does that do it? Knight takes, knight to there, queen to. Well, that loses it. Well, he's offering up a pawn. He's offering to trade like knight to a6 check, king to b7, holds everything. That's what he's. Well, no, it doesn't because he got the other knight in too. So knight to a6 check, king to a7, queen takes queen, knight takes queen, rook takes knight. King takes knight on a6, but then rook takes on c7. And you're going to lose the d4 pawn, but I don't know that that means that much. Because I think black's king might still be in trouble. Oh, he went there, but doesn't the other knight in? Isn't that good now? Well, maybe not. Oh, much better. Man, I'm missing all kinds of stuff. Yeah, he just withdraws the queen. Now black's queen, if it moves, it loses c7, and it has to move. So this looks very, very good for white. Plus, his opponent's under a minute, so we'll just maybe stay here for a few more seconds until I go back to the other ones. That was a very nice maneuver. The queen first to c4 with a threat, and black counters a threat, and you keep moving back on that diagonal with a totally different threat. That was very nice. They say backward. Oh wait, so you just resigned. Backward diagonal moves are some of the hardest moves to find. Okay, let's. I'm going to move back to Roman real quick and see how that position is doing. So let me go back to the position from my last analysis. Queen d3. He did play rook to d7. He didn't play f4. I think f4 was still probably possible, but he just kept the queen out. So he went queen to c5. He's offering a queen trade. So yeah, black, rather than try to force things, is just keeping all the advantages from his position, and white's just trying to repeat moves and hold on. So the best probably white's going to be able to do here is a draw. But he has some reasonable chances of that because under the right circumstances, he might even be able to get queen to c6 in and have that be a good move. And otherwise, black has the plan of continuing to advance his kingside pawns, but with his king out a little bit now, that might be a little bit more difficult, but maybe not. It's definitely still black's game, but he is down 3 minutes on the clock. he has about 3 minutes to his 6. So let me go back to Isaiah's game. And a lot has happened, and Isaiah's down to 1:30, so I'm going to see what happened here. Okay, yeah, let's see if he won the exchange like I thought he was going to. Takes, yeah, he did play knight to e2 like I thought. Pick up my earlier analysis. Okay. He's down. Okay, I'm looking at move 44. Isaiah is down to 1.5 minutes, but he's up an exchange and 2 pawns, and he's got a monster passed f pawn, which white cannot now take because of e4 discover check winning the queen. If he doesn't take it, it's going to continue to roll. So this looks pretty good. Unfortunately for white, even if he doesn't take it and he moves the queen, the e4 check is going to be very, very strong. So if he plays queen to e3 in this position, to target the rook on g5, black could just play e4 check. King has to go to h1, and then queen to g3 guards the rook, threatens mate, unstoppable mate. So this looks very good for black. So it'll just be a question of, okay, so he proactively took away that, so now he's maybe threatening to take the pawn. Except f2. Well, this just, okay. Yeah, he can just, as long as this is not a perpetual. Oh, there he is. He just won the queen. Very well played. Very well played.
White resign.
Yes, very good game by black. So that's 3-0 this round, right? And we got Roman's game is the only one left.
Yeah, so Isaiah ended up with 3 wins. Julian ended up with 4 wins. And Asish had 2 points. A win and 2 draws.
Yeah. Which, for board 4, an even score will take you a long ways.
Yeah, I think that draw against board 1 really gives us advantage.
That set the tone. That was very, very nice. So looks like Roman, they agreed to a draw, which is a little surprising to me. Maybe the time advantage was enough that that white didn't want to try to, or black didn't want to try to press. I will have to look at this game with my engine and see about f4, because I think that was the critical point for black to try to win it. That would be because once the pawn formation changed, everything was in black's favor. The bishop was better than the knight. The mobile pawn center was better than the the semi-isolated pawn on d5. And white had no attack on black's king, but black had a plan with rolling the kingside pawn. So I'd say the engine, we need to look at 29 f4, and I'm prepared to be totally wrong because these are 2 good players. So I'm sure they both looked at f4.
You want me to go to which move?
Huh?
What move do you want me to go to?
In Roman's game, after 29 queen to e3. And then this is where I said that after f4, it doesn't win a piece because of queen to a7 check. But after the king moves, then white has to move the knight, which I'm assuming he was going to E2, and then Black is still a lot better here. If he goes to F1, it's pretty. I mean, he's just so passive it doesn't matter. But like even at, I think that like let's just say F4, Queen to A7 check, King to G8. I don't know that it matters, G8 or F8 or even H8. But then if he plays Knight to F1, Black can play a move like Rook to D6, which holds his A6 pawn, which is White's only threat. And Black, I don't know that Black or White can do anything else. He can't get the Rook or the Knight to good positions. Black is not under any threat of from White. I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe if the move Rook to D6, maybe he can check on the back rank and the 7th rank, and there's no real way for Black to get out of it without, misplacing a piece or two. But I would think that F4 would be really, really strong here. So I'm going to make sure I look at this with my engine, because and I'm sure they both looked at it, and they're both good players. So there must be something there that I'm not seeing. But it looks really, really strong. There's no doubt that White's hanging on by his fingernails, because all of his pawns are much weaker. Black is just more better placed. But it might just be a matter of just having the right tactic to hold the game together. But certainly, I think the way Black played it, he didn't try to press to win, maybe because of his time disadvantage. But anyway, that's all I've got on that. And congratulations to Team Missouri.
That's a great start. 12.5.
3 rounds at 3.5 apiece, and a draw in the other round. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. So,
I appreciate all your help with it.
No, I enjoyed it, and I look forward to. I'll do it again. It's a lot less pressure, a lot less stress than actually playing. So,